Good evening, I'm Emma Jane Vea and this is Television Tonga News. In the headlines, His Majesty the King warmly welcomed in Ha'apai for the Royal Agricultural Show. Half of the recommendations made to the Boundary Commission want to maintain the Niua's own constituency, and domestic flights with Real Tonga's MA60 aircraft began last week. These and more stories, including news from the Pacific, sports, world and the weather forecast later on in this bulletin. Let's take a look at the news in detail. His Majesty King Tebow VI arrived in Bangai Ha'apai earlier this afternoon to officiate at the island's Royal Agricultural and Handicraft Show 2013, which will be held tomorrow. In a report from Television Tonga News correspondent in Bangai Ha'apai, Moimoi Whakahua, the King arrived at Tawhaaha Wharf this afternoon on board the Voya Bangai. He was welcomed to the island by the Ha'apai Governor, Lord Lihangana, and his people. Reports state that many people, including students from various schools, lined the streets from the wharf to Bangai to welcome His Majesty. A traditional presentation o Ha'unga was also presented by the people of Ha'apai to His Majesty at Tauakipolu Royal Residence. The Royal Agricultural Show will begin tomorrow at Le'aitohi grounds. Meanwhile, reports from Radio Tonga News reporter Pierre Olie, who's covering the events of the Royal Agricultural Shows in the Outer Islands, says Her Majesty Queen Nanasipa'u travels to Ha'apai by aircraft and is expected on the island later today. The Royal Agriculture and Handicraft Show in Ha'apai will be broadcast live on Radio Tonga 1. The MA60 aircraft commenced its commercial operations last Saturday to the island of Vava'o. Fatai Whainga'a has more on that story.
The MA60, which will operate domestic flights for the Kingdom, is managed by Real Tonga. Its general manager told Television Tonga News the aircraft resumes operations after meeting all requirements under the International Civil Aviation Organization ICAO, along with the lease agreement between Real Tonga and the government. Mr. Balo adds they've completed the insurance work for the aircraft, which he says was a substantial amount of money to the Australian insurance company called Erusure. Meanwhile, the New Zealand Foreign Minister Murray McCully continues to express his strong criticism over the issue. He told Radio New Zealand International that he will remain withholding the tourism funds to Tonga until the MA60 is internationally certified. Despite the criticism, the Honourable Deputy Prime Minister Sami Waipolo says the New Zealand High Commissioner took a flight on the MA60, showing his vote of confidence in the aircraft. MA60 will continue its domestic flight to the rest of the Northern Islands at a later date. For Television Tonga News, I'm Fatai Whainga'a.
50% of the recommendations received by the Boundary Commission from the public disagreed with the proposal to link Niuauputapu and Niuafa'o to a constituency in Vava'o or Eua. This is revealed by a member of the Commission, Ata'ata Finau. He says the suggestion was made as the combined population for the two Niuas comes to 864 registered voters, while there's an average of 3,000 registered voters in other constituencies. It was also suggested to link the Niuas with either a constituency in Vava'o, which is the island closest to it, or Eua, where many Niua people have resettled. The Boundary Commission will host a public consultation regarding the matter before a decision is made. The members of the Boundary Commission include the Chairman, Lord Tebow, Ata'ata Finau, Nalaskau Halatuituia, and the Secretary, Rosamond Bing. The loss of culture, tradition and youth unemployment are some of the issues raised during International Youth Day yesterday. This year's theme is youth migration and moving development forward. The Anglican Church held a special program on the church grounds in Nuku'alofa to mark the day. Linda Filiai tells you more.
To mark the International Youth Day in Tonga, youth from various districts in Tongatapu displayed the fruits of their labour, such as handicraft, fine mats, tapa, and crops from their plantation. Speaking at the event, the guest of honour, Archdeacon of Anglican Church in Tonga, Sausi Leota, highlighted the challenges faced by youth, such as migration, unemployment, poverty, and loss of culture and tradition. Youth and families alike are facing a lot of challenges these days, such as the rise of technology and development. There is a loss of respect among one another. Youth unemployment is high. This was also addressed by the Education Minister that many of youth don't finish their primary or secondary studies. However, a special attention is needed on the education sector in Tonga to improve the capability of students in terms of obtaining skills in their workforce. Also speaking at the gathering was the Secretary of Tongan Church Leaders, Reverend Philly Lilo, who called on the gathering to work together in addressing the challenges faced by youth.
The theme of this year is youth migration moving development forward. Not only will we encourage young people across the world to celebrate the day by focusing on the topic of youth migration, but we will be using the day as an opportunity to focus on some factors which may encourage our young people to cope with the very fast change of our days and environment.
Also attending the program was the Australian High Commissioner Brett Eltham, Japanese Ambassador Dr. Kazushika Hamuro, many youth members from various congregations and other guests.
5 men who were accused, arrested and charged with armed robbery and unlawful imprisonment remain in Ho'atolitoli prison. The Assistant Police Commissioner, Onga Fa'awa, confirmed this to Television Tonga News this morning. It says that the offenders have been remanded in Ho'atolitoli prison because of the seriousness of the crimes they committed. The 5 men were charged for the kidnap of 2 Asian men, a father and a son, during a business meeting at Umusi on July 24th. The men then demanded a ransom from the hostages' family. Police say a ransom of 400,000 ba'anga was paid. However, police have just recovered 325,000 ba'anga. Around 75,000 ba'anga is still unaccounted for. The Assistant Police Commissioner says investigation into the matter continues. Measures are made to improve the cruise ship sector in Tonga through a 2-day workshop called the Port Preparedness Program. Held at Tungi Colonnade, the training is funded and led by the Regional Tourism Organisation, the South Pacific Tourism Organisation, or SPTO. Sini Latu was there and filed this report.
It is vital that the public and private sectors recognize the importance of their roles in developing the cruise ships tourism sector in the kingdom. A consultant from Nautic Consultant, who is facilitating a special program on how to implement measures to address the issue, revealed this to TV Tonga News. Mr. John Nell says that the Port Preparedness Program focuses on creating awareness on what the cruise sector has to offer Tonga. It also includes developing of onshore products and building capacity within related sectors. Mr. Nell highlighted one of the challenges Tonga faces in the cruise sector of tourism, which is its geographical location.
The bulk of the passengers coming to the Pacific are cruising out of Australia. And a normal cruise, passengers are buying a 7-day or a 10-day cruise. And with the port content, so if you want 3 or 4 ports, you can only really get as far east as Vanuatu. To go on a 14-day cruise or a 16-day cruise, you can get to Fiji and maybe touch into Tonga. But 16-day cruises are no longer that popular. So it's ways of how do we attract what's called the repositioning ships. So every year the ships that redeploy from North America to Australia, they pass through these waters. So how do we position Tonga and get the cruise lines to choose Tonga as opposed to other Pacific destinations within this vicinity?
A tourism marketing officer for the South Pacific Tourism Organisation, SPTO, Alisi Lutu, says that the follow-up on the workshop is as important as conducting it.
What's important for this sector is public and private sector coordination and partnership is very important because there's a lot of different stakeholders that are involved with this. So I think for us is trying to maintain that relationship with the existing cruise steering committee to probably help in assisting with maybe a development of a cruise action plan specifically for Tonga. So that's probably the way forward that SPTO sees.
17 cruise liners are scheduled to visit Tonga this year, and this program is a way forward in developing cruise tourism in the country. For Television Tonga News, I'm Sini Latu.
Exercise programs are gaining popularity in fighting against non-communicable diseases such as diabetes and obesity. The Ministry of Health's Tonga Health Systems Support Services has started an early morning exercise routine to encourage healthier lifestyles. Anasiu Falekaono was at this morning's exercise session held at Te Whaiva Stadium.
One of the participants in a Tonga Health System Support Service exercise routine, William Ivaenga, says he's been participating with the program for 2 weeks. This exercise routine is not like other exercise routines. It really pushes you to your limits. It makes you run and do all sorts of exercises to your body could not do before. I've seen an immense improvement in my health and fitness. The program is held at Te Whaiva Stadium at 6 o'clock in the morning 3 times a week. This is the 6th week the program has been running. It's open for anyone to join. Many joining the program have noticed an improvement in their fitness and health. The program is funded by Osage through the Ministry of Health. Anasiu Falekaono for Television Tonga News.
That's the local news. Pacific is